Mason. I'm an English teacher over at Central High School. I had the fortune of pairing with Melinda and being part of the Biomedical Academy this year.
So I'm Melinda Walters, and I teach the Biomedical Academy and biology over at Central this year. And it's just been an amazing, incredible, really hard year to not only work with Tara, but also with the community and with the students. And we'll show you a little bit about what we've done this year. All right, so the Biomedical Academy is actually starting from Project Lead the Way. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with PLTW or Project Lead the Way, but Project Lead the Way is a very innovative curriculum that we've participated in. I have to go to 2 weeks of training with PLTW before I can teach any of their courses. And they have multiple programs. So they've got the Launch program, which is geared toward elementary school. They've got Gateway, which is middle school. And then they have 3 high school programs. They have engineering, computer science, and then our favorite, biomedical science. So thankfully, we've teamed up with these guys to be able to offer the biomedical sciences curriculum to all 3 high schools and house it at Central. Project Lead the Way is a nonprofit organization, and they base their curriculum on STEM and innovation and getting the kids into real-world problems in order to teach a problem and project-based type of classroom.
So because we're Shenandoah County, we decided doing something that innovative wasn't enough. We decided we wanted to link English to science. We wanted to bring that cross-curricular learning experience that we keep talking about, that we need. This is the real world. You never learn science in isolation from the English. We wanted to make it happen. So what is linked with this is the biomedical classes with the biomed English class. What we did was sort of throw out the traditional canon and work on bringing in learning and developing English skills through the science lens, we were talking about the other day. So, for example, all the prefix roots and affixes that students studied had some sort of biology link to what they were studying in Melinda's class. The first assignment that students got for the year was not, here, it's a novel, let's read and discuss in a few days. What we did was we pulled a bunch of case reports from medical journals. Students had to read them. They examined the text structure, figured out those consistent components. They then had to create their own mock case report that they wrote. They made up a patient, they made up a condition, and they wrote and did things with that. Then over in the science classroom, they wrote an accurate case report based on what they were doing in Melinda's classroom. So they're still reading, they're still writing, they're still researching, they're doing all and developing all of those English skills that we wanted. They're just doing it through the science lens. The results that we found by the end of the year was that students made the adequate growth, if not beyond adequate growth, that we had hoped for, just like you do in a standard English classroom. In addition, these kids that used to hate English finally enjoyed it because they were reading and writing about things that they actually cared about, and that made all the difference for them. So for our ICHIP grant, it was fairly simple what we wanted. We wanted a $1,000 budget. We wanted to have $1,000 for our students to put on the Biomedical Expo. All right? So what the expo is, we invited particularly the 8th and 9th graders at all 3 campuses, in addition to the hospital board, school board members, anyone in the school who wanted to come and visit to learn more about the program. It was student designed completely and fully. They will still grumble at us about, you threw us to the wolves. And we kind of did. We said, hey, this is your goal, how are you going to get there? You have $1,000. And they took the challenge and did a really great job. So it was totally student designed, hands-on learning experiences. They ended up creating stations that people rotated around. Our goal was for them to synthesize the learning that they had gained over the course of the year in order to educate others. In addition, it was an additional way for us to sort of promote the biomedical program.
So this was our plan for the kids, and you can see that really, really easily we incorporated the cornerstones. The kids had to collaboratively work together, and in a little bit you'll hear them talking about that. They had to work together not only to create their station, which is kind of the smaller picture, but also the huge picture where they had to collaborate in order to come up with a budget and then stay within that budget, and then order items in time and stay within a time frame. And, they really had to work as an entire class and then as a pair or even an individual to make all of that work out well. They had to think critically and problem solve through this entire process, and then, as you'll hear in a little bit, we had lots of weather issues and we had to reschedule and reschedule again, and then we had to contact everybody to tell them it was rescheduled, and thankfully we had a lot of help in that, but it really helped them to problem solve and think about, okay, if this kind of snafu happens, how do I fix it, and tackle that before it happened. They did, like Tara talked about, synthesize their learning from what we had done previously and all of their prior knowledge into creating this incredible expo. They had to create their presentation space. So again, on a huge note, they had to figure out how to make all of their stations fit into one space. And we actually went back and forth with a couple spaces. They decided one was too small, one might have been too big, and then they had to create a map to map that out so that flow worked well when we had a couple of kids coming. They also had to work to create their printed and professional grade items. They created professional posters, which we have out and we'll show you in a little bit, and they had to get those printed. They printed items as simple as like frequently asked questions to something a little bit more complex like a letter to the community to invite them in. They had to also work together with the hospital board. We are paired with Shenandoah Memorial Hospital Foundation. They gave us some funds to make this program happen, and so we incorporated them into the expo. The kids, did it all, and had meetings with Melissa Stoller and Katie Rice, and really was helpful. Communication was key. They were a little nervous about talking in front of people, and then about their writing. But after we went through this whole program, we were like, oh, we can do this. Oh, let's do these. I got this. I got this. And then finally, not only did they do the letters and the posters, but they also created business cards. One of our students made a logo for our class that was turned into business cards and letterhead and t-shirts.
All right, so challenges along the way. If any of you all, this is Central High School over to the left. If you remember that nonstop stuff that happened, while the rest of you all were like, woo, we were like, no more. So we rescheduled 3 different dates. The third date finally came and we were all set up and super excited and ready to go. We got the Central campus there. We got the Southern campus there. And then it was raining and we had a flood day early release. So we ended up having to take it on the road to go up to Strasburg High School in order to do Expo 2.0 and get everybody involved. So at that point, we sort of have decided maybe we need to rethink when we schedule this. But it wasn't just a scheduling problem. One of the biggest challenges, each station that students created, they did an outreach and got a hospital partner to come in. They were going to have this expert standing beside them. But the craziness of the hospital schedules and the craziness of RV scheduling, they lost that expert with them. And so students who were going to have support, all of a sudden were without. On February 3rd, they just didn't show up. We had no idea that they weren't coming. We thought that everything was worked out. So kids are in panic mode, but it was actually a great opportunity for perseverance and problem solving because all of a sudden this extra tier of support they thought they were going to have, they didn't have anymore. And they were able to overcome it and really shine without that support.
We really adopted the motto, adapt and overcome.
You don't have a choice. And they didn't. So we also, there was just timing problems in terms of getting t-shirts, getting where we needed to be, and doing that sort of thing. I think the most difficult sort of heart-wrenching challenge for us was making the decision of whether or not students were going to be allowed to film publicly. Because we set this up in an arena where there were going to be lots of outside of school people coming in and seeing. And we went back and forth. Do you let them fail publicly? Do you not let them participate? What do we do? And we sort of just adopted the practice. We kept nudging and kept asking questions and kept having peers ask questions. And fortunately for us, we made the decision to let them go, and they didn't. They did a great job. But that was a really difficult challenge and thing to sort of accept as a teacher, that maybe my kids are going to put them out there and they're not going to succeed in a very public arena.
I think backing off and letting the kids do it was probably one of the most stressful pieces for Tara and I, because we wanted to really make sure that they did it and not us. So it was a lot of nudging, it was a lot of, you got this, and it was great. We made it. All right, so we, for the grant, had to set up the way that we were going to evaluate the students and make sure that this was a learning opportunity, not just for the kids that they were teaching at the expo, but also for themselves. And so we had two pieces. One was planning, and so like we talked about, we looked at an accurate and feasible budget, and did they create that budget, and did they stay within that budget? We had to look at space design, so space small, like how are they going to set up their table and their workspace, to how are they going to set up the actual major space of the expo. We looked at materials. They had to gain their materials in an appropriate, timely manner. They really got a taste of how like finances work and how to work through the school and how much paperwork and time it takes to get that stuff. You don't just go to Walmart and buy it all the time. We looked at their presentations, and were they accurate? Were they knowledgeable? And did they pull this off in the way that they wanted to in terms of an educational experience? Reflection. So they did reflection logs. Now I'm going to point over here because our kids just walked in. But they did reflection logs almost on a daily basis where they recorded ideas. They looked at what tasks they completed. They projected what needed to be done next so that we could sort of help them through that and make sure that they had what they needed. Critical friends feedback we used for their presentations. Worked out really, really well. And then presentation practice for them was also looked at.
We spent about 3 days before it came. We sort of arranged, here's where things are going to be, and had the students go, okay, go, what's going to happen? We walk up to your station, show us.
At the event itself, we gave out surveys to the participants. So these participants, again, were students, community members, some parents showed up, we had school board members, we had administrators, and the students were primarily 8th and 9th graders. Hospital Foundation members came to participate in this. And they filled out a survey. And so part of the survey was to show the level of engagement of the attendees, and they were super engaged. I mean, we had principals and administrators down digging into the heart and cutting open a brain. We had a PPE race where they had to put on their personal protective equipment, which we got outside for you to try on, and then they had to race down, kind of like a fireman's race. They had to race down, take it off, put it on their partner, and race back. And so that was really fun. We had then look at the professional courtesy of the students. So were our students in their stations professional, and were they educated and knowledgeable about their station? Did they actually teach what they wanted the 8th and 9th graders to get? And so we looked at survey results for that. And so it was a 1 to 4 scale, 1 being like the worst experience and 4 being the best. And so you can see we did pretty well, or they did pretty well. So these are the questions for the participants. How much did you learn today? How satisfied were you with the entire event? What was the professionalism of the biomed students? And how was their knowledge base of the biomed students again? And so we're looking at like a 90 to 98% range here with that 3.6 to 3.9. We're very happy with that. These are some of snippets that came from the survey. At the bottom of the survey, they could write what they wanted to tell us, whether it was maybe some sort of suggestion for next year, or I really like the way this happened. And these are some of the pieces that the attendees said.
We sort of felt like if you could get an 8th and a 9th grader to say something nice like this, we had to be doing something. Right? Middle school teachers.
Yeah. And you can tell these comments reflected some of the amount of learning that went on, the impressive nature of the event. And again, it was to kind of get them to understand what the Biomed Academy is. And that happened as well. And some kids were like, yes, I really want to do this. And some were like, maybe that's not for me. And that was a success in and of itself.
So we also surveyed our students themselves. We didn't just look at the participants. We wanted to know how the students felt here, 32 of them, how they felt about it. So overall, we asked them, what extent do you felt like you had to exhibit those cornerstones? So, again, 1 being not at all, 4 being extensively, we had to do a lot. Anywhere from a 3.6 to a 3.9 up here. They were really challenged to develop and use those skills along the way. And we felt like that was a really important accomplishment. Critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, problem solving, and synthesis of learning. Hands down, closer to 4 than even to a 3. We also had them evaluate some very specific statements. One of our goals was sort of to build community within the program. We also wanted them just to have that real world experience, right? So level of responsibility, 3.7. Confidence in their abilities after doing it, average of a 3.7. More connected with the program itself, at 3.8. And this was a valuable learning experience, at 3.9. These are pretty honest kids. They're those high achievers who are pretty critical of themselves. And for them to evaluate it as a very valuable learning experience, we felt spoke for itself. So what we have here is just an opportunity for you guys to see the student perspective and the student voice.
Do you feel more confident in your abilities after the expo?
Before the expo, I was really shy and quiet, and I was really just in public. But after the expo, my speaking skills have improved, and my confidence level has increased with the information that I've learned.
I feel like personally, the expo helped me with collaboration because I had a partner, Skylar. She did the standing part of our station. I did the labor and delivery part. We had to collaborate on ideas and material and our scripts. We collaborated and we kind of linked them. So after they did a station with her, they would come with me and do my station. Besides my personal collaboration, we collaborated as a class and with our teachers to help the expo come together as a whole. And I feel like that is really important and that helped us pull off the expo efficiently and as successfully as it did.
Lauren and I created a photography station for the expo, and we had it all planned out and prepared, we were ready for it, and we had to postpone the expo snow days so the expo can be pushed back. And so the day expo finally came, and we didn't have 2 deadlines. We were supposed to have 2 deadlines, and we only had 1, and the one that we had wasn't included. So during the expo, our dummy arm was malfunctioning. So in order to solve the problem, we had the students practice tying a tourniquet around our own arms, and instead we gave them souvenirs of fake blood and test tubes so they could get the experience of what it's like when you extract the blood.
Well, we had a partner and worked together in the race to go and teach the students in community how to properly put on and remove personal protective equipment. And we worked together through different problems that we had, like how would we get kids to run and do the race, actually do the race and do everything properly. So we went step by step on how to do everything perfectly.
During the expo, our group was in charge of making the maps for the expo so that all visitors could clearly see where things were. Then after the expo, we were thanking notes to all of the people that came to help with the expo.
saw on the whiteboards there at the very end were incoming 8th graders explaining what they wanted out of education. And again and again and again, the answer was something more hands-on, something that allows me to move and do in the classroom.
All right, so what's next? This is not the last expo that we're going to have. We definitely want to keep up this tradition, not only to give this learning experience, but also to get the Biomedical Academy out and use our community members that really want to be part of our academy. So a couple things that the students would like to do differently next year is instead of just having a sign up, so this year the 8th graders and 9th graders got to sign up, they would like to invite them all. So all 8th graders, all 9th graders. And one of the ways that they would like to do that in order to make it a little more cost effective and easier on the schools is to have a traveling expo. So like Tara said, because of the weather, we had to go to the northern campus, which we were pretty nervous about. You know, it's not, the kids are like, yeah, it's not our space, it's not our home, like, you know, how are we going to do this? And it, to them, was the best part of that expo. It was the best session that they had. They felt like the kids were more engaged, they were more excited, they were more comfortable in their own space. So instead of bringing kids to the central campus, they would like to go to the southern campus and then up to the northern campus and make this expo travel so that their participants are more comfortable. They've already got this and they're okay with being out of their comfort zone. They want to increase the number of stations. So one thing that they've talked about is creating a mentor program within the Biomed Academy. And so you apply to the Biomed Academy as a 9th grader, you enter as a 10th grader. So we'll have 2 classes next year. We'll have our current 10th graders, we'll be 11th graders, and then our new class. And so the 11th graders want to partner with the 10th graders and become a peer mentor. And that specifically came from the expo. They want to be able to mentor these kids through some of the hardships that they had to make it more of a smooth experience. And so they want to keep their own stations that they had set up and add the stations that the upcoming 10th graders want to add in. So we'll have more stations. Stricter student deadlines and a better way to facilitate their accountability. Because it was new for us as well, we were like, oh, maybe it's going to take this long, and some things we let go a little bit longer than we should have. So stricter schedules and more accountability or ways to assess that accountability from the students will be another piece that we put in next year. We want to bring the expo a little bit earlier based on weather and also so that these 8th and 9th graders are really thinking about whether they want to do it or not and have that time to ask questions after the expo because a lot of them, as you can see in the one where the Jasmine was holding the baby and Kendall was next to her, like finding our hands, they were a little nervous. They really look up to these biomed students and to give them that processing time to think about what kind of questions they might have is really important. That's all. Mentor program and take that expo over.
And we want to take a step back even more. Now that the upcoming 11th graders have taken on, we want to put them in charge. We want them to be the facilitators of the test. We want them guiding them through the process just like we guided them this year. Then they're done that, and they know better than we do because they were right in the heart of all of it this year. And so allowing them to lead in next year's activities and development, we think is an important experience for the students. So the question remains, what does this mean for you guys? Like, how can you do this? The bottom line is we capitalized on an opportunity to showcase our students' learning. If you're familiar with the learning pyramid at all, like 90% retention when you're teaching something to someone else, right? You know, lecture versus reading versus discussion. You get to that high retention rate if you're teaching it to someone else. And we want to get our kids where they're really understanding and really remembering things. And so that's what the expo was. It was our kids teaching something to these other guys. And so we did it on a big scale. We went really public, really big with it. But it's very easy to do small with it too. I took my regular English 11 classes, had them pick an issue within the community or the school that they felt had an issue of unfairness within a unit that we were doing on fairness. They had to create a trifold, a digital presentation, and a takeaway. And then we just invited classes from the school to come. And so they spent an entire block sort of showcasing what they understood about the topic and trying to persuade people to their side. Hands down, they said it was the best learning experience they had that semester. It was so much fun and they learned so much. They pulled in the research, the oral communication skills, the reading, the writing. It's all there. I think, Jamie, you did something not too far from that in your class. I think Cindy explained. It's great. And then you get kids interacting with each other. You know, kids that normally wouldn't talk, all of a sudden are engaging and talking and finding connections on topics. And so that's pretty good too.
So if I could piggyback on that as a spectator, one of my classes went, it was actually the Biomedical Expo, to that mini expo with our English class, and they were thrilled and very impressed. And, wow, we did so huge, and look, they just did here too, and they were so proud of the students that were behind those boards, just as if we were proud of them and they were behind them.
So the last quote here, deeper learning is learning you can tell a story about. I love this. It's Bob Lenz, who is with Envision Education. He's a big PBL school-wide proponent. And I think it's pretty powerful. I mean, we say it all the time. It's not a lecture. It's not a worksheet that kids remember. It's those events that they can tell the story about that you remember. If you think back to what you remember from school, it's those type of activities. And the expo is one of those ways to really deeply engage with those students. Anyone have any questions right now?
Well, first of all, I think this is really cool. And then also, are you guys in regular English and science class? Or like, I know you said you have like special permission because you did like T's.
Yeah, so the PLTW courses are actually CTE courses. They're not considered science courses. So they take their science courses over and above the PLTW courses. There are 4 in the biomed program. There's principles of biomedical science, medical innovation, or medical intervention, human body systems, and biomedical innovation. And so they'll take those over 3 years, paired with English 10, 11, and 12 that are honors AP level courses.
Although I would say, I think you could do this within regular science and English courses too.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've talked about pairing like the 9th grade English with earth science. We talked a lot about that, sort of that idea. I think Debbie and Cheryl are going to talk about how they really integrated all of their subject areas and did something really special like that at the 4th grade level tomorrow. So you're going to see how it can work doing it all.
Any other questions?
How many students do you have?
20. So we take in 20 new guys every year. This was the very first year.
And they come from all different high schools. So we have a mix of Strasburg, Stonewall, and Central students.
So what about you? Your English and science? Usually science, math, English, that's all I think.
So I'll just do my soapbox for a minute. If you compare English with what the kids are interested, whether it be the science, the social studies, even health and PE at the high school level, I think they're going to get a lot more out of it because they really connect, they write and read about things that they care about. And we're looking at developing skills so much more than memorizing literary terms at this point. And so that's why this has been so much fun for me. Again, you know, these math and science brain kids don't really like English. They loved it because the content was something that they connected with.
If you guys don't have any more questions for us, we do have a couple students out. If you go to the far end of the cafeteria, you'll see on the partition board are some of their posters that they created. Please take a look at, walk through, take a look at those. Ask the students any questions that you might come up with at that point. There are 2 tables. On one of the longer tables, you'll see some organs from the organ station, and you'll see there's some publications there that the kids wrote for like the frequently asked questions and question and answer station. There's stuff, there's a separate table for DNA. There's a DNA station. And so there are puzzles there and pieces that you're welcome to put together and play with. So just go out and kind of pick their brain and check out a couple of the stations that they've put together. And then if you have any additional questions, you can let us know.
What's our time?
Yeah,
We're in good shape.
Okay.
The next one's supposed to start